Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee Talk. I'm your host, Kate Coffee Bacon. We spend a lot of time on this show talking about careers, about purpose and leadership and even resilience. Underneath all of those conversations is something that is so much simpler, and that is, how are we actually living our lives? Today's guest has spent years asking that question. He's the founder of the Gotta Look Up movement, author of Gotta Look Up, Unplug, Reconnect, and Rediscover Life. He's a businessman, a speaker, and a storyteller who believes that the greatest distractions in life aren't always the loudest ones. Sometimes they're the small habits we repeat every day without even realizing what they're actually costing us. Through his experiences, including navigating life after divorce and rebuilding what mattered the most, he's developed ideas that help people reconnect with purpose, relationships, and hope. My goodness, Tom Campbell, welcome to Coffee Talk.
Kate, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. I look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. As I mentioned, you wrote a book called Gotta Look Up. I put it on my Instagram yesterday. I was so excited you sent it to me. As you can tell by the bookshelf behind me, this is not a background. This is my actual house. I love to read and pass along books to other people. So thank you for that gift. I'm truly appreciative of that. I cannot wait to dive in. But let's jump into your story. Before there was Gotta Look Up, there was just you, just Tom. So tell us a little bit how your life has shaped you. That's a big question. Jump in wherever you want.
Yeah, no, where do we start? So I had a wonderful life so far, and I'm going to continue to make it better, right? Every day is a part of the evolution. I was born on the East Coast, but my dad was from the East Coast. My mom was from the West Coast. They met via my uncle, who was on the same ship as my dad in the Navy. And so they started out on the East Coast and then moved to California. So I grew up in the San Jose area in California, spent most of my life there, and actually started my family there as well. So I had great parents. I don't know what else to tell you. They taught me a certain moral code, a certain level of integrity that I take with me. I don't always follow it as well as they did, I don't think, but I always tell folks that my biggest advantages are I was born in this country to parents that gave a damn. So that was the advantage. And I have 3 brothers and a sister. There's a little bit of gap in between. There's like a group of 3 of us that are like 4 years apart, and then a 10-year gap, and then a couple more. So it was great growing up, and that's really, and we'll get into that, but really what helped me turn my life around was remembering those foundational things when I was a kid and remembering what was important with family and all that. And I always say, one of the prayers I always say is, I thank God for the honor of being Dave and Janet Campbell's son and for the honor of being Grant and Ashley's father.
Wow.
Those are the 2 main things in my life and the 2 main purposes that I've lived my whole life with. So
yeah. You speak so highly of your parents and what a legacy they left in you and your children. I can't wait to talk more about your children and more of what they're doing. Those values were instilled in you, obviously, at a very young age and throughout your life. What are some of those values that you learned growing up that are influencing you now?
yeah. Darn it, I don't have my wallet with me, or do I? Where did I put it? It's a chapter in the book, and may be able to find it here in the book. My dad gave me a list, and I keep it in my wallet. I just, unfortunately, don't have my wallet on me right now, but he gave me a list of things that we called our grandfather Pop, and Pop had 10 commandments, and they're listed here in the book, and I'll read them. Obey God's 10 commandments is number 1. Respect everybody, number 2. Help somebody, number 3. If you can't say good, don't say anything, number 4. Youngest first, number 5. Make sure children are happy, number 6. Always tell the truth, number 7. Take care of your family, number 8. Thank God for what you have, number 9. Always stick together, number 10. So that list is folded up in my wallet. And, in addition to the 10 commandments, I've got some that my family created that I try to live by as well. And so that's the thing that's most important is you have responsibilities in life. If you have children, they need your help regardless of how old they are. My brother, who's older than me, is like, I wish mom and dad wouldn't worry so much. And I'm like, Pete, they're your parents. It doesn't matter if they're 90 and you're 70. They're going to worry about you because you're their kid. And so family was everything to my parents. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She made every birthday special, baked cakes on her own, created different decorations and things for all of that. So she loved her kids. That's all she wanted to be, was a full-time stay-at-home mom. And my dad was able to make that happen for her. That was their goal. And that's how we were raised. So I never came home to an empty house.
Yeah.
And that was wonderful growing up that way. And it was wonderful growing up in San Jose at the time I did, because it was an up and coming young dynamic or demographic. And it was great. And so that's the foundational stuff. And then, I ended up getting married, and I have a son and a daughter who are adults now. My son is pursuing careers as either a drone pilot or a airplane pilot or flight instructor. My daughter has degrees in psychology and social work from USF and USC. Very proud of both kids for different reasons.
Yeah.
Kids are different. They need different things. And they need to be loved differently, but loved the same amount. And so they're both looking for their first career step. And they actually live with me here in Los Angeles area. And, it's a little crowded, but we have a good time and we support each other.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Tom, I'll speak a little candidly. When we first started chatting about you coming onto Coffee Talk, I had to take a pause. I had to take a pause from my show. I was going through some things with my family, and we experienced some pretty significant loss back to back. I lost one of my dads, and then I have two dads. I'm very lucky in that. And then a couple of weeks later, we lost my husband's mother, and it was jarring and shocking. And you were so kind through all of that, because I would message you and be like, Tom, I'm sorry. I just have to push pause right now and focus on some other things. And you are living that purpose. You are living those values. And I am a front row recipient of seeing that in you. So I do want to affirm you in that you are living it. You are so kind, and you were so gracious to me, and showed me so much patience as I was like, I'm coming back, I promise, but I have to take a pause and just kind of focus on some other things. And you're like, that's what the book's all about. I'm like,
yeah. Well, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it. But, again, I'm a man of faith, and Jesus told us, love one another as I loved you. That was the last commandment. That's the last thing. That was his instruction. So how are we doing on that?
Yeah.
Right? And I try to show grace where I can. I can lose my temper here and there, but I try for the most part to show grace in every situation, because at the end of the day, we're all here for a reason, and that's to love each other and take care of each other.
That is right.
And
that is absolutely right.
We get lost in the societal pressures and lose sight of what the real reason we're here is, or what we're here for is. And I always tell everybody, we're all given unique gifts. And I think we get sidetracked, sidelined, distracted, whatever we want to say, or, we look at this and say, wow, they've got this house or that car. And I was involved in a lot of that. And post-divorce, I just said, you know what? I'm living the wrong life. Right?
Yeah.
Life is supposed to be about what memories you create. Right? Because those memories turn into stories, and those stories turn into legacy. And that legacy outlasts your life. Look at what I just shared with you. My grandfather's 10 commandments.
Yeah.
Well, my grandfather passed away when I was 14, but that's still outliving him. My dad passed away 8 years ago, but those 10 commandments are still outliving my dad. And now it's on me to pass it along to somebody else. And that's what's important in life. People need to know they matter. People need to know there's hope, and that they're not the only ones going through what they're going through. You're not alone. There are other people out there that are dealing with similar stuff, and we just have to be supportive and more gracious to each other and help each other out. That's how I believe the world gets to be a better place. But we're so worried about how much we make, what assets we have, what car we drive, where's my house? Is it bigger than that person's? We're losing sight of the fact that true success is how many lives you touch, not how many assets you have.
Yeah, Tom, I've had, I think this is my 35th episode. So I've talked to so many people that give me a moment. They give me maybe a moment when their life quietly or maybe out loud, maybe privately, maybe very visibly, very publicly changed directions. Sometimes you spoke about your divorce. Sometimes it's one event. Sometimes it's an entire season. What did you discover about yourself in uncertainty in one of those seasons?
Yeah, I think for me, I was shocked at how people can behave in certain situations. I read in a book once that when emotions are high, intelligence is low. And that's sort of what I experienced in that process, to where the biggest challenge I've ever had to face was when my kids were told things that were completely untrue. And I got blindsided by that in a family counseling session. And my whole life blew up. Like it was the bottom of the abyss. And my kids weren't speaking to me. My kids were told by this counselor to make a list of all the things I do that are wrong, that make them feel, scared or less than or whatever. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. What about all the positive things?
Yeah.
Right? We're not going to talk about that right now. And I'm like, well, maybe we ought to balance this out a little bit, right? So I had to rebuild the relationship with my son, the relationship with my daughter, and the relationship with both of them because of the stuff they were told. And so what I try to tell people that are going through a divorce process, whether it's the mom or the dad, is keep everybody else out of it. All the in-laws, all the cousins, all the uncles and aunts need to be a support structure. They don't need to be a source of opinions on who's wrong, who's right. They need to show love to the children.
Yeah.
And if you think about using your children as a weapon, stop.
Yeah.
Because that's what can really destroy a child's trust. A child's starting to question, their purpose or what their place in the world. And it's not good for them. And so those are the messages I try to leave with anybody who's going through the process is keep your kids out of it and make sure the rest of your family keeps the kids out of it. And they just love the kids as they always have.
Yeah.
But if you're going to use your kids as a foil, I'm not on your side. I'm just not.
I remember when I was going through counseling when my kid's dad and I got divorced, and this has been many, many years ago now, more than 10. And in one of my very first sessions, my therapist said something that has really been very true for me, and it carried me through raising my kids. And she said, be careful what you say about him around them, because kids see themselves as, they come from these two parents. And so if I'm speaking negatively about their father, then he's a part of them. And indirectly, I'm criticizing them because he is a part of them. And that message has resonated with me. And even in conversations with my kids where maybe they were in a squabble with their dad or whatever, I would just remind them, like, your dad loves you so much.
That's huge. Yeah.
Your dad, like I would tell my daughter, especially, I remember the day that you were born, and your dad, I never saw your dad cry. And he cried the day you were born because he had this precious little baby in his arms. It was his responsibility to take care of. He promised me he always would, and I believe he always will. That was what I've said to all three of my children. And I believe that.
Yeah.
The issues that I had with him were my issues.
It's so important what you just said, because their identities are tied to their parent. And if they start to question, do I have those negative qualities that are being pointed out to me, right? They're going to feel less than about themselves. And my other thing is, in this day and age, and again, there's all kinds of like, if there's any kind of physical abuse kinds of issues or drugs or whatever, then that adds a different variable to this equation. But in this day and age, I don't think you want your sons or daughters thinking that they can't count on either parent.
Right.
Because there are evil forces out there that will use that as a wedge, and you don't want that. Nobody wants that.
Yeah. As parents, we're our children's first idea of what a support system looks like. And then hopefully they go out and they create more of that. They replicate that support in, whether that be in their career or, in their friend group or whatever. And so I just feel like it does our children such a disservice to break that down when they're so little.
Yeah.
Like we have to model what that support looks like. I'm very thankful for my kid's dad in that he has always been partnered with me in supporting them.
That's good.
And I am thankful.
I do want to make just one last point on the estrangement question, right? If you're a parent, my advice to every dad or mom that's going through it, where they're a little estranged, or maybe their kids have been convinced that they shouldn't talk to you, whatever. It took a couple months for my son to come around, and then it took about a year for my daughter, and it took some effort from me going to where, like working in the cafeteria at her school so she could see me and remind her of who her dad really was, not what she was being told. And like she had to do volunteer hours, and she was learning to drive. So all these things, I took on all these things that were chores in a sense, but it was time with my kid.
Yeah.
And so it was a way of reminding them. So my advice to everybody is who's in that, whether you're the mom or the dad, don't stop being their parent. If it don't send a text message and then wait an hour and say, well, how come you didn't text me back?
Right.
Send your text message, send them a picture of, if they loved horses, send them, hey, I saw this and thought of you. No expectation back. Just keep the love flowing out to them. And over time, it'll come back. And then to any kids that feel estranged from their parent, there is love there, guys, and try to find a way to forgive and reconnect, because you may not get get the chance. What if that parent, something happens? I don't think you want that feeling of, shoot, my mom is gone now and I can't talk to her, or my dad, passed away and I'll never talk to him again. If there's forgiveness in your heart, find somebody who can help take you there. If you need a relative, a friend, to kind of referee it, if you're a little scared about the situation. And again, physical abuse, mental abuse, drug addiction, whatever, that's a different question. But if you love your mom or dad, try to find a way to sit with them and see if you can reconnect. It may take a while. And as parents, be patient with them, because if they're making the effort, that's opening the door. So don't slam it shut. Find a way to continue to open the door until the trust level's back. And that's the thing I had to build at a baseline with both kids, is the trust level again. And I told them, look, I'm going to comment on behaviors. I'm not going to comment on people. And, I do stuff that was wrong. I may have said things that are wrong, but what you're hearing or what you're being told is a complete, what's the word? Not amalgamation, but it's extrapolated way out. It's blown out of proportion. Yeah. That's not true. And so for anyone going through that, like for me, I told both kids, look, I'm just going to dedicate what time I have to helping you guys out. Right. We're going to build this back. And so I talk to people about this, right? Divorce sucks.
Yeah.
And people approach it thinking, oh, I'll get through it. And then, no, it sucks. And it's always harder than you think. There's always outside forces adding to it. And you have to build a shield around your children, because they're the most important part of it. It's not their fault. They didn't do it. And their world gets shaken up. Their stability gets taken away. And so you have to work harder to reinforce the love, reinforce the safety and security. And, that should be your priority, not who you're going to date next or, where you're going to live. You got to take care of your kids, keep their dreams alive.
Yeah. You did the work. Your children are with you now. Like, happy ending there. Like you did the work. You said that you worked in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Just to see your
So,
daughter? Yeah. Tell me more
so
about
yeah,
that.
at the time, again, that I told you, I don't want to get into the details of the counselor, but she really screwed up. And like my time with my daughter was very limited. I had to, the school she went to, the junior high, the parents had to volunteer. Well, one of those things, every grade level had to volunteer in the cafeteria. Well, thankfully, I got the first month of the year and I volunteered. And I'm like, I'll at least be in the same room with her,
Yeah.
which I wasn't getting, right? So I'd go to work early. I'd work until it was, I had to leave to go make it to her school by lunchtime. And then I'd work late to cover the couple hours gap that I was gone. And I cleared it. And so I signed up for as many shifts as I could get. And with every shift, you work a line and you're scooping food or whatever. And, she was in the far lane walking by. And then eventually she came in the middle lane and then finally got to my lane after a period of time. But I always signed up for mashed potatoes. And I say that mashed potato volcanoes was the start of fixing my relationship with her. Because when they were little, and again, remind them of who you were, remind them of what kind of parent you were, what kind of dad I was. And every time there was mashed potatoes and gravy or, you put butter on or whatever, I'd make them a volcano and the butter or the gravy would be the lava, right? When they were little kids. So she comes through the line and I whip up a mashed potato volcano. I might lose it, by the way. Sorry.
I might lose it too.
And she got a little smirk on her face. And I'm like, I cracked the code.
Yeah.
So I went on mashed potato duty every time after that. So next time she gets in line, I whip up another one and her friend behind her goes, can I get one too? Or I whip up a second one. Next time I'm doing it, there's 5 kids, then 10 kids. They all want mashed potato volcanoes, right?
Yeah.
But it was that, again, be their parent. The things you used to do for them when they were younger, keep doing those things without expectation. You can't, and I talk to dads, well, she didn't text me back and she didn't do this, do that. No, she'll do it when she's ready, or he'll do it when he's ready. And it may take them a while, but you got to keep being their dad and you got to keep showing them the love and you got to send them things that remind you of them. And for some, I have a friend whose kids haven't talked to him in over 5 years. And I keep telling him the same thing. You just got to keep trying because someday that door will crack open and you don't want to be unknown to them at that point.
Right.
So anyway, that's the story around that. And then the other thing she had to do is volunteer hours. And so, of course, I got assigned to that, which was fine because it's more time for with my daughter. And so I said, look, go get permission to clean up the beach. So she got that signed off. And my family's had a place at the beach up north for, not on the beach, but near it. And so we drove her down to Monterey and we were supposed to be picking up trash on the beach. Well, I went and bought a bunch of saltwater taffy at 9:00 in the morning and I'm opening the wrappers and throwing them down and go, oh, some trash we got to pick up. And we ended up going to the beach by our house and ended up cleaning up things at that beach too. But it's that kind of stuff, just being around, being present, being around them, reminding them of the love. And that's what worked. That's what got my trust back to where now she told her friend, she's like, if the stuff hits the fan, I call my dad.
Yeah.
So anyway, all the parents out there, don't give up. And to all the kids, your parents love you. So try. And if you're afraid to have that conversation with them, bring a trusted family member with you to referee it. But I think what you'll find is if both of you are willing to forgive and forget, you can build something so much stronger going forward.
Yeah. What an incredible story of resilience, and especially around something that mattered so much to you, your relationship with your children. I do want to transition and talk about your book. So you've written a book and the title sounds so simple, gotta look up, but I know it means so much more than putting our phones away. I just took a 2-week vacation with my family and didn't know where my phone was most of the time because everybody I needed to talk to was there, right? I didn't need to talk to anybody else. So where did this idea, what were you seeing in the world that convinced you that this conversation in your book needed to happen?
A lot of this.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah. Eyes
And when I
down
was
on your
walking
phone.
around,
Yeah.
walking down, New York's busy anyway, but I'm walking down the street in New York and everybody's on their phones and they're bumping into me. And I finally turned around to somebody and said, "Hey, you got to look up." Because the guy came right at me, right? He didn't even look up, just boom, hit me and just kept going. And I thought, that's an interesting angle. And I talked to my dad about it. He was around at the time and he's like, "You got to do something with that." So I started thinking about it more and building on it. And originally it was to focus on getting our kids off of these screens because my kids are kind of that first generation of where these things came out, right? And this is a tool if you use it right. If you let it control you, it's not a tool, it's an addiction. So, and I'm as bad as anybody doing scrolling at all hours or whatever. I'm as bad as anybody, but I try to be more conscious of it. And I never will be texting while I'm driving. And I still see people doing that. And you can always tell because they're either drunk or they're texting, one of the two, because they shift, like this, or they're going slow. They're doing 50 in the fast lane on the freeway or whatever. So I just decided to start writing about what people call like technoference, how these things get in the way. And then it became a deeper thing for me. It's like, well, wait a minute. If I look up from this device, I can now engage people around me in the world more fully and be more present. But what if I need something more meaningful? And for me as a guy of faith, I'm like, okay, I can look up even higher. So look up is not only just going from here to here, but going up. And I like to say, one of the things I say is, the internet can't hug you back, but everybody is in here finding dates or whatever. And I'm like, well, okay, that two-dimensional person there is not going to hug me back. I need to be with people. So it's really more focused around, how do you get off of these screens once you've used them productively? I call it productive screen time, right? Once you're done with your productive screen time, how do you engage the world, right? And so I think your front door is a better portal to the world than a phone or a computer screen. So get out there and travel and do things and meet people and talk to them. But what the book ended up being was just a collection of stories. Like I said, I listed my grandfather's 10 commandments in there as like a story about family and what family means. And I've got a story in there about when I went to Pearl Harbor and found the name of a guy who was killed on the Arizona and dropping a flower petal in the water and watching this oil slick develop from the Arizona Memorial. Huge oil slick. Like, okay, what is that? What did that mean? Right. And just trying to look for deeper meaning in just daily and routine activities. So in the book, I quote, there's a lot of quotes that have meaning to me. There's what I call Thomisms, which are my own things like the internet can't hug you back. And I just try to tell little stories from my life that help people challenge themselves on how they think. Like, who are your heroes? What memories have you created for kids? Right? Things like that. What's important? So there's sort of 5 pillars to it. It's got to look up, got to look around, got to look ahead, look higher and deeper, and then keep going. Because people face challenges and they get stuck. And I call that life's quicksand, when you get stuck. So quicksand could be a divorce. It could be financial trouble. It could be a bad relationship, a bad job, whatever, but you're stuck. And a lot of people, when they're stuck in quicksand, they'll thrash. They don't know what to do. Well, when you thrash in quicksand, you sink. So it's how do you calm yourself down and look for the things that I call trees of joy? Because every time I watch like the Tarzan TV show, either he'd scream for a chimp to bring him a vine that he could pull himself out with, and that vine was attached to a tree, or an elephant would come and pull him out, right? So the trees of joy are the things that bring you personal joy. They're the things that matter most to you. So I look back on my childhood I liked animals. I liked history. I liked to write. I liked my family, and spent more time doing those things as distractions. So you weren't just wallowing in, I'm getting a divorce, I'm going broke, all these things that were happening at the time. And it was really ways of taking yourself out of that and doing something fun so that you're more prepared to go back into the quicksand to fix whatever needed to be fixed.
Yeah.
And then the third leg of all this is I talk about anchors of hope. And that's really, what's your future look like? What do you want to anchor your future to, right? Where do you want to be financially? Where do you want to be in terms of where you're living? What do you want to be doing work-wise? Because I would challenge that a lot of us are in jobs, but we're not really pursuing purpose. We're just pursuing money to pay for things. And I'm trying now to pursue enough money, but I want to travel and I want to, there's things I want to do, things I want to learn before I'm gone, before I'm taken away from this place, things I want to see. So those are the anchors of hope. Like what are my future goals? Where do I want to be? Where do I want to live? And a lot of it ties back to my kids, right? If one's on the East Coast and one's on the West, am I going to move to Dallas? Probably not. I'll probably move to be near one of them and then fly out to see the other one. And if they're in the same place, great. Then I get to be close to them. But that's what matters most to me. So that's what I focus my anchors of hope on. So it's really those three concepts: identifying what you're stuck in, right? And what needs to change. Is it the job, the relationship, whatever? And then what are the things that made me happy as a kid or as a young adult or now? And spend as much time as I can doing those. And then where do I want to go and how do I get there?
Yeah. I have so many questions for you around these kind of three pillars. First of all, I love the contrast of quicksand and what comes next. So not just surviving life, but building very intentionally. We know when we're in quicksand. We feel it in our being. We feel that sludge, that slowdown. Let's talk about trees of joy. What grows those trees for you?
Yeah. So for me, like I said, it was animals. I love animals. So I would go, take a bag of dog food and some toys to a dog rescue. Doesn't cost that much. And it's something you can do. And if the hard part is getting out of there without bringing a dog home, but it distracts you. If you're wallowing in stuff and you're sitting around a house staring at the same walls, you can't, go take a walk at a minimum. But if you get involved in the things that you loved, you'll find that it'll build your life back up. So I'm older now, so I can't do a lot of sports I used to do because tendons start to pop and things like that. So I'd go to the driving range and hit golf balls. Okay. And that can be a great stress relief or cause more stress depending on how you do. But at least you're doing something productive like that. I would go, I wrote the book basically. Like I'd do some research or spend time writing. I got involved in animal charity stuff, which ended up taking me to Africa to see elephants in person. And elephants are my favorite. So I finally got to see an elephant in the wild. And it was amazing because I had a 12-foot high bull 3 feet away from me.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing, amazing experience. And so it's just, and this stuff, when you're going through a divorce and you don't have money because you're paying child support and alimony and all that, trying to have a living on your own, you can't always hop on a plane to Africa. You got to find local things that you can do that take you out of that mindset and have you focus more on your future rather than your past. And so I'd spend, tried to spend more time hanging out with my brothers or my cousins that I always had a good time with, or I'd go to hockey games with friends, right? So it's really, it's not all that complex. It's just, I tried to find the things that bring me happiness and joy. And then I created this construct around, that's a tree. Yeah. That's a stable thing I can hang on to. That's not going to pull me back. And like I said, I would make this assertion that my kids were in the quicksand. Yeah. And so I had to tie a rope around my tree and go back and get them out. Right. And so sometimes you have to go back in to the quicksand to get other people out of it or help them get out of there. So it's just like a mnemonic or a visual that I like to use. And it gets people thinking about, okay, well, what do I like to do the best? I mean, you don't even have to be in quicksand to come up with these things. It's like my life can get better if I spend more time doing these things which are my top priorities.
I love the visualization of the tree and growth, because to me, that's what a tree symbolizes, is growth. Not only can, it gives you something to tie to, right? But it can help you in your own personal development and service. Service is, for so many of us, for me, when I'm feeling down, service brings me joy. How can I serve
Yes.
others? How can I get rid of my own selfishness and do something that's serving a greater and a bigger good? Your anchors of hope. I love that. In my visualization of your quicksand and your anchor, I skipped the tree. So thank you for planting the tree there for me.
It's an initial step. Yeah.
The anchors of hope, that's something I have used when I've talked about the thing that pulls me through. Like, I call on my anchors. Tell me what that is. Give me more on anchors of hope and where that concept came from.
Yeah, I think the trees are really more shorter term tactical. Like, how do I change from being in the negative to being in the positive? And then the anchors are really, what are my goals and objectives for my new future, right? Because it's an evolution now. I don't have the family I had. I still have children I love, and it's a different family dynamic. But the original intent, the original goal is not realistic. It's gone. So what am I going to look at now as a future state? And, doesn't change the fact that I'm a father, right? I always say that my title of dad is the most important title you can ever give me. Any title I have other than that reports into my title of dad forever now, right? And so for me, it's like I said, I want to write books. I've done one. I've got several more in here that I got to get on paper. That's an anchor of hope, right? Because it's carving out a different future. And I didn't really do that in my younger years. It was all about making money. How do I make more money so I can have more? And now it's, how do I make enough money so I can go to Australia and Africa and Alaska and hit all 50 states? Like, what are my goals for me, for my life? Because you kind of get bogged down in living other people's lives if you're not careful. That's what happened with me. I lost my identity.
So easy to do. Yeah.
And was living for something else that was far away from what I wanted for me. Looking back on it now, that's what I realized. And then you start to look at, I probably didn't communicate that very well. I should have communicated that better. Or I probably shouldn't have taken that job because it paid more. I probably should have stuck with the thing that was more stable, right? What happened there? Well, you were impatient. All right, so you got to work on your patience now. But really, a lot of that is just self-awareness kind of stuff. But back to the question of the anchors, it's really, what are your goals? What kind of life do you want? What kinds of jobs do you want to have? What things do you want to experience? My brothers and sisters all learned to play the piano when they were younger. I didn't want to. I was playing sports and breaking fingers and, couldn't really play the piano. I wish I had. And now I'm thinking, is music part of that? Do I want to do something musical? Maybe. I might want to take bagpipe lessons in Scotland. I don't know. Right? But these are all things that, as you're reinventing your life, coming out of a bad situation, or I don't want to keep saying bad situation. Divorce sucks. I went through a divorce. A lot of people will never fully get out of that. I don't think anyone ever fully gets out of it. There's always some lingering thing there. But what are the things I'm going to go do now? I've got to carve a new life path. I'm still a dad. I got to keep that going. But what kind of job do I want? That's why I'm doing, writing books and trying to do podcasts and stuff. I think I got a lot of stories to share with people that might get them thinking about, well, gee, I'm kind of stuck. Maybe I should identify with what my trees of joy are and what my anchors of hope are and carve a different future out, right?
I think this idea can apply to any huge transition that we have in our life. I don't necessarily call it a bad situation. I call it a transition. I have grown children, and when my youngest left home for college 3 years ago, I was devastated. Not because I wanted her to stay home. I didn't. I wanted her to go out and create a life for herself.
Yeah.
But that was a transition for me where I had to do all the things you're talking about. That is when I started plugging into more into my community and more into serving, and found so much joy there and those anchors of hope. These ideas apply to more than the divorce. It's any time of transition. Losing a parent, I just went through that. Losing a job that you identified with. Anything that shakes you or makes you question your identity. All of these principles they just slide right into it. I could have used you 3 years ago, Tom. I could have used you for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, you bring up identity. And what I've learned, especially since the divorce, is my connection with my creator is so much stronger than it ever was. I talk to him every day. Sometimes it's back. If you listen with your soul, that's where you find your prayers getting answered. They don't get answered in here. But that connection is really what has transitioned my life quite a bit. And I would encourage everybody to do that, because I've got that coming up. I love having my kids here because it's time I get back from before that I didn't have. But I know it's best for them to have their lives started, and I'm trying to help them with that. And I know that transition's coming up, and that feeling's going to come again of, okay, now what? Right?
It's awful.
Yeah. So I'll be calling you and asking you.
I'm just going to remind you of your simple truths. I'm going to be like, Tom, let's walk through your book together.
Yeah. But again, my relationship with God is my relationship with God. It's different from everybody else's, and he saved me. That's all I can say. I was at the bottom, and he saved me. So if you're looking for the one fix, talk to your creator.
I love all this very practical action point advice that you're giving. It's so rational. You made a comment about emotions and decisions, and this helps to calm the emotion in order to find our next step. I want to talk about technology a little bit, because your book does not ask the reader to reject technology. Technology is very good, but it asks us to be more intentional with the time that we have. I read a book a couple of years ago called Stolen Focus, and it was on a similar idea. I will say by the end of the introduction to that book, I had deleted Facebook off of my phone. And I said, no more of that. But I love that you're not saying reject all technology. You're just saying, with the time that you have, be more intentional with it. You're such a great advice giver. What's a simple habit or a simple thing that someone could do this week to live in that purpose?
Yeah, I think for me, I have to get better at it still. Just because, I'm not in Facebook all that much. I look at Facebook as an address book.
Yeah.
Right? The old address books that people used to have, right? If I need to get a hold of somebody, I'm either looking on Facebook or LinkedIn to catch up with them. I'm in Instagram way too much. But sometimes, it can be an escape. It's just you have to sort of set a time limit, all right? I could go watch a movie for a couple hours, or I could go scroll for a half an hour, but before you know it, it becomes an hour and a half, so it's just being aware of, okay, it's 8:00. I should do this till 8:30. Set the alarm. If the alarm goes off, it's like, okay, well, I got to put it away. Right. And it's the same thing. People ask me, how'd you write the book? And I'm in some writers groups and stuff. And they're like, well, I tried to allocate 2 hours on a Friday. And I'm like, I go, well, let me tell you guys, you're making all the mistakes I made, which was, I'll just do 2 hours on a Friday. I set aside a half hour every day to work on my idea, whether it's writing a chapter, whether it's researching a topic, whether it's finding a quote that aligns with the chapter I'm writing, just a half an hour to move it forward, right? I think the same can apply to how you use technology, which is create a goal that's reasonable and then adhere to that. So whether it's setting that half-hour timer on Instagram and stopping, before you know it, you'll be spending an hour less and then 2 hours less. Similar to when I was trying to write the book. You start for 30 minutes. Before you know it, you pick your head up and 3 hours have gone by because you get in the zone, right? So how do you create that flow on the other side of eliminating the technology? One of the things that drives me crazy is I love to hike. And I'll go on a hike and somebody's on their phone while they're hiking. And it's like, I came out to be in nature, not to hear you talk, or they've got their boom box with them or whatever. It's like, guys, look what you're missing, right? And that was one of the monikers I had with Gotta Look Up. See what you're missing. Because when we're in here, we're missing a lot.
Real interactions, real relationships, real people, we live in an age of technology. We live in an age of AI, and these relationships that we have all around us are real and sustaining. These are the help and support that's all around you, not on our phones. It's not.
Yeah. Well, again, technology is a tool to improve your life, but you have to decide if it's going to improve your life or not. If it controls you, it's not improving your life.
Yeah. So if someone were to finish your book, what would you hope would stay with them and would be a grounding idea for them even a year later?
Yeah, I think you mentioned the word hope in that question.
Yeah.
And that's really it. There are people struggling every day with things and struggle with loneliness or struggle with some sort of pain, and they think they're the only ones going through it, but you're not. But if there's one thing after reading the book, it's you're not alone and you matter, and what memories you're creating. You've got gifts to share with the world, share them, and what memories you create carry on long after you're gone.
Tom, thank you so much for coming onto Coffee Talk, for spending this time with me, for sharing your story with the listener, for being so authentic, and for giving me so much advice. Like I told you, I needed you 3 years ago, but I got you now. You're locked in. For me, this conversation reminded me, brought to top of mind for me that my presence, being present with where I am, is a choice. I like to say I want to be where my feet are, and to look around the room and appreciate the abundance that's all around me, because I have it. It's all around me. But I need this as a constant reminder. And those 10 commandments, I have a feeling, are going to be in my wallet from now on too. So I'll carry that one on. Again, thank you for coming on to Coffee Talk today. Thank you for, I really love your idea of the quicksand, planting more of those trees of joy, and to find the anchors of hope that keep us grounded when it all gets so difficult, because difficulty is an inevitability of life going to happen.
Well, Kate, thank you for having me. I'm so glad we connected. If you want to do this again at any time, just let me know.
Let's do a part 2.
Absolutely.
I will link your book, Gotta Look Up, in the show notes, so you can find that. And I'll also put some quick links to connect with Tom so that you can follow along in his journey. Again, I'm so thankful. Thank you for gifting me this book. Thank you for gifting me your time. Time is such a valuable resource, so thank you for giving it to me today. Until next time, let me do a sign off. I got to take a deep breath. So much. Okay. Until next time, keep building your relationship. Keep making more space for these kinds of real conversations, and pour into someone else this week. I'll meet you back here next Monday. Thank you for joining us today on Coffee Talk. A special thanks to my guests for sharing their story, and to you, the listener, for being a part of this conversation. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a Monday morning chat. Until next time, I'm Kate Coffee Bacon, and this has been Coffee Talk.